Hi. How are you? We have a beautiful day out there. I was able to go out in my garden. I planted my garden this over the weekend. So I have to go check because there is an animal didn't eat my plants because they're pepper plants. So the leaves probably are giving off like a strong, maybe they know that it's going to be not sweet, but more on the strong side. Anyway, dug it up and threw it on the side, and there's a hole. So anyway, I looked and my plant was off to the side. So I put it back in there and so forth. So I do have to check my garden every morning. The audacity to go digging in my garden. And actually, yeah, one of my plants, I can imagine, must have been going like this. It could have been a cat, I'm not sure, but could have been a squirrel, but somebody dug it up and decided they wanted that hole, that spot, and that plant had to go. Okay, any questions? What I want to do is go into chapter 15, and I want to talk about a hiring process, which we already talked about a great bit of that. But I want to go through the PowerPoint that matches your reading in chapter 15. Then I'm opening up your test 3, and I have to check to see. Let me go in here and let me go into Canvas and see where we are. Because I want to stay on track. Okay. Let's go to our timeline. That's always the go-to when you go into Canvas, see where we are and match up our dates. So today is the 20th. I don't know where this month is going, but it is moving. And on the, we have case study number 3. So we're going to go over case study number 3. I'm going to post test 3 when we're done today. And that test will be on chapter 15, also on workforce staffing, because there's discipline. So you'll have discipline information. Well, discipline have a separate PowerPoint labeled discipline, but you're still going to be tested on some FTEs calculations. I want to keep that fresh in your mind. So I always include some calculations in your tests. So that being said, next week we have case study number 4. So that's our last case study. I don't think we have any article presentations, but I'll double check, but I don't think so. So let me close this out. Let's go to assignments and see who posted case study number 3, because I don't like to go over them. Okay, we had a submission by Tram. See, we still have individuals that are still in the class. They're just not attending the Zoom. They're probably working. Here's Katori's. Here's Amanda. All right. So we have a number of people that did not submit. Okay. All right. So we only had 3 submissions. So that means who did not submit will have points off, or will get a 0 if they don't submit at all over the next day or so. So let me close this out, and I want to go to the module for case study 3 so that we can read the case study and then talk about the case study. So, okay, this is Sean, okay? And Sean is a dietary supervisor. He recently has found it difficult to get much of his work done in the office. And it's because whenever he's in the office, his employees come in and out complaining about each other. When he offers to intervene, they insist that he does not, and that his intervention will likely make things worse. He tries to take care of these issues by making broad statements about behavior, but sometimes employees know to whom the statements were directed and later come into him insisting that they need to know who said these things about them so that they can handle it like adults. Okay. So Sean is beginning to dread going to work. He feels like his hands are tied and that unless he stays in the kitchen to constantly watch everyone, things get out of control. His boss is getting upset with him because many of his large projects and reports are not completed in a timely manner. His employees appear to have low morale overall and make catty remarks to each other on a regular basis. He also has found employees whispering to each other in the walk-in cooler and other storage areas. Lately, he has heard several employees state, either directly or indirectly, that he does nothing to change things in the kitchen. What can Sean do to save his department? So, Katori, give me two of your recommendations.
Okay, I think the first recommendation I made is that Sean is facing kind of a communication barrier when he chooses to make these broad statements. I think he could do a much better job when an employee comes to him, having kind of like a mediation between that employee and the employee that they have a problem with, rather than just take their concern, walk into the kitchen and make a broad statement about someone. That just leaves people guessing rather than nip it in the bud by having like a mediation between the two employees.
I love the nip in the bud. First of all, when someone comes in with a complaint, he needs to get to the root of it. And I don't want to give too much away, but even though they say, I don't want you to, call that other person in or say anything, that's not their decision. Because once they have brought that issue to him, it is his responsibility to resolve, to investigate, and to manage that problem. That's his job, and he just has to simply tell them, you have brought it to my attention, and now I will attend to it. Okay? Yes. Did you want to add anything else, Katori?
Yeah, I think I put something along the lines of kind of opening the channels of communication. We talked about how communication can be upwards, downwards, or horizontal. And if he opens those channels a little bit more, it'll just create more feedback, and that'll be more positive.
He's definitely got a grapevine going on here. Yeah, definitely a grapevine with a lot of gossiping. Yes, a lot of talk, a lot of noise, a whole lot of noise going on in that kitchen. And now he's the part of that noise at this point, and he's realizing, I'm losing this battle. Yeah. Okay, I'll come back to you, Katori, because you probably have some other things that you can probably share. Amanda, give me two of your recommendations. You're unmuted, but we still can't hear you. Wow. Okay. I think she says she's going to change computers. Okay. Sometimes going out and coming back in can connect her audio. So we're going to give her a few minutes to come back in. I know your Zoom can be working fine 1 minute, and next thing you know, something isn't responding. She's coming back in. Good. There she goes. She's connecting. Wow. No. Oh, she's steady talking. Do you hear her, Katori? No. So it's not on my end. Oh, she's trying to figure it out. Oh, that's happened to me. It's frustrating. Yeah, she needs to go in her settings, and sometimes your audio is off and you don't know how it went off. Okay, she's trying it again. Let's see if she's able to fix it. Oh, she's connecting to audio. I don't know whether that showed up before. Now she's got to unmute. Amanda, do you hear me? It looks like you need to just unmute, and you may have, do you hear me?
Now?
Oh, we hear your voice.
Oh, I'm back.
You're back. You're back.
Oh, good.
Somewhere along the line, your audio.
It wasn't like syncing. It kept telling me to relaunch Zoom, so I kept relaunching it. And it wasn't working.
That has happened to me. Yeah, and I'll say, why? How did this happen? I was just on Zoom and talking to somebody, and my audio was fine. But good. I'm glad to hear you. Okay, yeah, you were getting ready to share two of your recommendations.
So my first recommendation was that he needs to establish a system for having employees make complaints, because he's having a problem getting his work done because people keep coming into his office. So I feel like he needs to set up a system and communicate it both in writing and through like a department meeting to his employee. Okay, this is how we're going to handle it. So I'm like, the idea of an open door policy is good, but potentially maybe like 2 to 3 days a week, and maybe like 45 30-minute time frame, hour time frame. He could be like, okay, so Monday, Wednesday, Friday, my doors open from 2:30 to 3:15 every day. So if you want to talk to me about something, do it then, so that he can manage his work schedule but also have that communication with employees.
Yes, he wants open door, but he doesn't want them to take advantage of that open door. And yes, they are taking up all of his time. So time management is not being followed by him at all. Good idea, setting up a policy procedure. Yes, good.
And then my second thing was similar to what you were saying, is that Sean is allowing his employees to determine his actions or lack of actions. Like, as much as they'll be like, please don't intervene, this isn't good, he can't allow that to control his discipline. Like, he needs to use his authority in this situation to his advantage.
Yeah, because it's backfiring on him. Yeah, can you imagine somebody telling you, oh, don't say anything, don't do anything, but behind his back, they complain that he's not doing anything. Yeah, so it's backfiring on him. Yeah. Any other conversation? Number one, yes, he needs to set up a policy Yes, he has an open door, but for them to come to him with a concern, a complaint, it should be certain times of the day or certain days. And of course, if it's an emergency, that's another story, something that needs to be brought to his attention ASAP. But when they can come and actually discuss their job and discuss issues or things that are bothering them about their workplace. And along with that, he should have a note that when it comes to a complaint, that he has to, he has that authority to investigate and to talk to all parties involved, to be able to resolve that issue. Yeah, he's got to do that. And guess what? Once he does that, he's going to have fewer people coming in and out of his door, because some people are just sort of stirring the pot, complaining because maybe they have an issue with someone, and we call them tattletales, or just trying to get somebody into trouble. We have troublemakers. We really do. And the troublemaker will tend to tell that person, don't say anything, because they don't want it to be investigated. They don't want that person to hear the other side of the story. Yeah. So again, I think those are the main. I think you did a good job between the two of you bringing up, how he can go about resolving this. But yes, he has to use his authority. And we talked about that in the leadership chapter. We also we're talking about discipline, because how can he even give a verbal warning if he's not supposed to address and bring that other person in to discuss the issue? So again, they are taking over his ability to discipline, because and then once you got it in writing, then there is a procedure for coming to him with complaints or issues that need to be resolved. Anybody want to add anything? I think we did well, and definitely this case study does coincide with information we have covered, and information that we're going to be discussing in chapter 15, because chapter 15 does talk about, again, the hiring process, orientation, and definitely doing orientation. This is a good time to tell someone that's new, or to inform them, during, your time here, you're going to have, concerns or something you want to bring to my attention. And then you show them in the employee handbook where, that procedure, what days, what times. Oh, another thing I want to bring up is you can also ask them to put that complaint or concern in writing. What does that tend to do?
I feel like a lot of the times that tends to make it anonymous.
Yes.
You have it in writing.
To have it in writing. Okay. What else does having it in writing do? Yeah, go ahead, Corey.
I think it makes it more like factual.
Oh,
because
yes.
like you can say like the grapevine, you can just be gossiping,
Yes,
complaining, but once you write it down, you can reference that. It's more factual.
it's more factual. And it's going to reduce those complaints. Because if it's a legitimate issue, they're going to put it in writing.
Mm-hmm.
But if it is a spontaneous problem because this person just rubbed you the wrong way and you decide you're going to run into the office and, you know, and sort of what I say, vent, because a lot of them are just venting. And in turn, they'd say, oh, don't say anything to that person because I don't want them to know that I came to you about it or something of that nature. Putting it in writing in many places ask you to put it, ask that person to put it in writing. It does make it more factual. It gives you a record of that issue because, and it clarifies communication because even as that manager, you can interpret it the wrong way, couldn't you? Because it was verbal. And there's a lot of barriers to verbal. You misinterpret it. You know, that person could have presented it not exactly how they wanted to tell it. But when you write it down, it makes it a lot more clearer. You can put a lot more thought into it when you're writing. We've all had to write things. And you sit there and you really have to think about how am I going to say this to make it clear and really put that meaning behind it that I intend to put behind it. So let's definitely make a note that it needs to be in writing, that complaint from that individual. So that being said, let me get into chapter 15 PowerPoint. And I don't want to spend, a tremendous amount of time because, again, we've already covered a lot of this chapter. When it comes to staffing and managing human resources, involve all methods of matching tasks to be formed with that people available to do the work. We touched on this in chapter 13 when we were analyzing the work to be done. We analyzed the job. From that, we developed specifications so that we'll know what experience, what how much education, you know, all the criteria that we are looking for when we're hiring. And that's your specification, also known as your job requirement. Then we can write our job descriptions also after analyzing the job. So once this is in place, again, it does address that matching the task to that person that needs to do that job. An important aspect of human resource function is the establishment, the acceptance, and the enforcement of fair labor policies within an organization. And those are, and we covered this extensively in that discipline PowerPoint when we were talking about policies and procedures have to be written and clearly understood. And we talked about they should be in the employee handbook. In doing orientation, you read, go over the handbook with that new hire, and they get a copy of the handbook and they sign that the information was covered during orientation. They have a copy of it. This just sets the tone. It sets that that new person will take policies and procedures a lot more serious if it was covered during orientation and they had to sign that the information was provided and they have a copy or to refer back to. So it really does, and it sends that message that you're going to enforce those policies. Staffing, again, requirement of tasks performed with people who have necessary skills. That's what we mean by analyzing the job, writing your job specifications, because that specification is what you use for determining the applicants who applied for the job. Do they meet the specifications? So this is the beginning of that hiring, and it helps you with placement to make sure that you're placing them correctly. And once they're working, as long as they're performing, at a certain level, they're definitely going to be considered for any promotions. There are transfers. I used to have transfers as a food service director because I could have had an opening in the dietary department, but somebody actually wanted to go into the nursing department. But they needed a job, and we call it getting your foot in the door, so that when there's an opening, you're one of the first to hear about it and you can jump right on it. There are also places that are only hiring within. That's very common. I know that our college does that. And then a state, internal hiring. They use that internal hiring versus external. And of course, there's jobs that they will also accept for external applicants, but that internal is very common. Job design, training, supervision, decision-making. We're going to talk about performance evaluation. And of course, we already talked about discipline. Some of the key concepts is that we're going back to chapter 13 when we talked about our organizational chart, our job descriptions, and our job specifications. These are the tools that we definitely will use when it comes to human resources. Then we're going to talk about the different types of recruitment. There's internal that I just touched on. And there's also external, which we need to take that job specification and send it out of the organization. May it be, on the internet. Newspapers, sad to say, they've become almost obsolete. They do still have some want ads in our newspaper, but again, not a lot of people purchase newspapers anymore. So you would be using a form of advertisement that's really not going to reach a high number of our population or your community. Employment agencies, many of them have websites, and they have a way of maybe pop-ups or however it is, but being able to communicate your job availability and being able to cover a wide range of individuals. Schools are very good, maybe not so good during the pandemic, but definitely when they have job fairs, and you have, for example, our college, and many colleges have, particularly community college, you have a career area where many job specifications from different companies, organizations will send it to the college through that department, and in turn that department can get that information out to the departments that feel that they're preparing students to go out in the workplace so that they can match depending on what that job specification is looking for. Labor unions definitely for certain jobs, if that organization, if the employees are unionized, unions will also circulate, the availabilities of positions that are available. You do have to have an effective hiring process, and this is the beginning of what would I say, preventing disciplinary problems. So we're going back to our disciplinary PowerPoint. When one of the causes is that ineffective hiring. Okay, the first one, remember, was the unwritten. Either you don't have policies and procedures written, or if they are written, they're vague and not clear. And then the second one was you have a inadequate hiring process. And what you need to include would be an application form. Many application forms are electronic. Organizations have websites. And anymore, I can't think of any organization that's going to be successful, particularly in the hiring process, if they don't have a website and have a link for hiring or jobs. So they will call that link different, they'll put different labels on there. And when they click on that, they will have an application. And these applications, they have application forms that will all actually screen the information that people are typing in. So if you require them to have a certification and they don't have that certification, that application won't go through. So again, it's sad, but you want people to apply that meet specifications. So that application, I remember years ago, all those paper applications, oh, they were a headache. Some of them was missing just important information. Phone numbers, can you imagine not having a phone number on your application? I said, well, I got to put this aside because I don't have any way of reaching this person. Addresses would be missing. I mean, I would have maybe 30 applications, and out of the 30 applications, only 5 of them would be complete enough for me to look at them and look at if they met the specifications, call them up, and set up an interview. So again, the electronic applications are really, really good. Equally carefully prepared interview. And we're going to get into interviews a little bit more when we get in the chapter, because the interview is the next most important step besides analyzing the job, writing the jobs specification, getting those job specifications out to as many areas so that you can get a good, what would I say, a good mix of applicants. So sometimes you're not getting enough applicants because you weren't able to distribute that information to the communities that are within a certain range of travel, of course. And you have to consider that people may be relocating. because I've seen people apply from another state, and I said, wow, why would they be living in Virginia and they're applying for a kitchen, a job in the food service department? And again, they're applying because they feel that they will be living in the area, or they're open to relocating. So again, so it doesn't mean that you just stay right in your community. After your interview, yes, you've got to have a strong orientation program, and then they go into training. And then once they're on the job, you have to have a good performance evaluation. And when it comes to evaluating performance, many of our employees in the food service industry, especially some of our skilled, may it be a chef, may it be a prep cook, it could be a dietary aide, it can be any of those skilled or unskilled positions that you want them to be on promotion, not promotion, on, help me out. Um, ah, we talked about it. Either a 60-day or 90-day probational period. Okay. And that means that it gives you an opportunity to evaluate them, their first 30 days. Bring them in, go over their performance. And then if it's a 60-day, at least midpoint, that person knows what they need to do in order to, be able to make it through their probationary period and again be considered full time. We talked about disciplinary actions, okay, and how it should be immediate, consistent, and impersonal, okay? And based on known expectations. I like this key concept because it really covered all of the major factors that need to be addressed when it comes to disciplinary action. And then labor policies. In this chapter, we're going to go over different, definitely you're going to have policy and procedure manual. Some of those policies are mandated, they're state mandated, and they federally mandated. Then the state has to make sure that they're addressing those federal, hiring, legislation, laws, regulations, and of course, this is what we mean by legislation, fair labor policies. We have the National Labor Relations Act. So a lot of these are federal, therefore it's up to each state to implement. And then, of course, as a food service director, we need to make sure that we know of this legislation and that we are following it. Another thing about the legislation is that I tend not to test on this particular test coming up, because as you read over some of the policies, I like for students to keep reading, review, so that they can retain these policies, because when you sit for national exams, may it be to be a certified dietary manager, a DTR exam, moving on to sitting for the RD exam. A lot of this legislation you have to remember because it is enforced in the workplace. Staffing, we had our workforce staffing PowerPoint. So a lot of that information also ties into human resources. and their definition of staffing is the realization by workers that they are useful and important to efficient functioning of the business, and that they contribute to their sense of responsibility, ownership, pride in the organization. And we definitely address that in the leadership chapter on making sure that they are, brought into at least being transparent on things that are going to be changed, plans that the organization is are getting ready to put in place. Let them know. Sometimes they may not have a big part in the decision making, but people don't like to just be blindsided. And all of a sudden, there's something new, and every change in the organization, I can't think of too many changes that are not going to affect them in some way. It could affect where they park. It could affect I don't know, just the accessibility of the building, So again, all of that, just informing them. And there's a lot of areas to get their input where they do have some, you ask them, what are some ideas? And we want to, put all these ideas together and present them to the board so that that can be part of their decision making. Integrated staffing. I remember in our previous textbooks, they actually had a diagram that diagrammed the integrated staffing. And what it did is it was a line, and it showed the beginning of what you use to determine when you want to fill a position. Either someone retired or someone resigned, or you had a restructuring of the organization. You had a change in menu where you now need different skills and abilities, and it opens up a new position, or it opens up needing to hire someone that has certain skills. Say that you decide that you want to start baking on the premises, then you need to hire someone with those baking skills, okay? So I'm just throwing that out there. So it would show that there are so many different reasons why you determine you need to hire. And then the next step would be to analyze that job, to write the specifications. And then the next step would be sending those specifications out. And then the applications, review of applications, calling in and conducting interviews. And then you've hired that person. And once they're hired, the orientation. So it's a step-by-step, and this is what we mean by integrated staffing, an orderly plan for moving people into through and eventually out of the organization. So at the very end, it would show that someone might go out of the organization if they were transferred, if they were possibly promoted. That might take them to another location, so they may not be at that particular location. It could be that they resigned, or they were terminated, or sad to say, it could be due to death. And as a food service director, I remember at least one occasion where one of my employees became ill. And She never took a sick day, and I think she had worked for the organization almost 20 years. Can you imagine? She worked as a dietary aide, very, very good, good worker, full of experience. I actually would pay her additional money to train the dietary aides, any new hires. And she got ill. She was out for a week, and we sensed something was really wrong. Next thing you know, she was diagnosed with cancer, and she went very fast. She was gone in about 4 weeks. It was devastating. So yes, we can lose employees through death. Okay. We need to also look at part of compensation for employees is money. And we also looked at other benefits in the workforce PowerPoint. So not only money, benefits can equal pay, because it could have been out of the pocket money, may it be for health benefits, may it be days that you're sick. And if you don't have sick days, then that's going to be a reduction in your hours. So you have so many sick days, you have vacation days. Vacation's important because everybody needs time off from the job, okay? And therefore that is a benefit. So, and we talked about that burnout. Another part is a feeling of satisfaction and an opportunity to grow in an organization. Yes, it should be always room to grow. May it be you're unskilled, being to move into a skilled position where over time you can train that person. They're with you long enough. There's days that you can schedule them to be a prep cook. You can schedule them to do a higher pay, job. And we talked about that in our workforce PowerPoint. And before you know it, you have a position open and you have someone that now has that experience. So again, definitely room to grow. Continue with staffing, skill standard. Again, these define the level of performance necessary to be successful in a job. That's your job specifications. And again, recruitment, we talked about how important it is that if it's going to be internal sources, yes, certain jobs you want to stay internal. You want to stay internal because going back to the previous, the fact that you want them to grow with your organization. So how are you going to grow within an organization if all of their hiring is open to external? And here you are competing with people from, you're just competing against more people, okay? But if it's a job that you want to first see if you can fill internally, then that's the way they should go. And that again gives people an opportunity to grow within that organization. And then of course, how do you advertise internally? I think, we could just talk about the fact that if you have a website, then you can post it on your website in job opportunities. You can send emails out to all employees so that they can see what job opportunities are available. So yeah, just reaching internally. You can always put it on a bulletin board. That's a little fashion, but if you're small enough, that might be all you need. is to have a bulletin board outside of Human Resources Department. People know that's where you go to look for internal postings. Unions many times want jobs to be internally posted first, and then you go external. That could be in the contract that you hire within first and make sure everyone's available, that there's a job opening. And if they meet the specifications, hire within. And then, of course, externally, we talked about schools, websites, employment agencies. So there's sometimes within communities, they have job fairs. It could be a organization, it could be the Rotary Club, or it could be Help Me Out, just different clubs within that community that could host job fairs. Churches, how about that? I've heard of churches having job fairs. So there's just other ways of getting that job out, that announcement to the community. Advertising, I would say newspapers, not so much. We do have community newspapers, okay? So we still have that, but again, not everybody reads newspapers or subscribe. So of course, the internet, you have other social type media where you can, advertise. And there's your employment agencies, which many of them are online. This is the schools, labor unions. Now we have sent the information out. Now they need to fill out the application. And that application is generally electronic anymore. Now there's small organizations, small restaurants, small food service departments that still could use a hard copy application. What I want you to remember is that not only the application, but during the interview, the application and the interview, resumes, cover letters, all of them are used to set up that interview process. So yes, you look at applications, you look at resumes, you look at cover letters, and therefore now you invite people and you schedule an interview. The purpose of the interview is to get information, and you're getting information that's not on the job application, that's not on the resume, that's not on the cover letter. You want to get information about maybe their personality. You want to get a sense of whether they can sort of think and make some decisions. And by asking them questions, they can give you additional information, verbally give you information. That make a friend, I just wish the textbook had said, put that applicant at ease, make them feel that they're not on a hot seat and they're not being interrogated, and just when they come into the interview, they just feel welcomed, and people introduce themselves, their name and what department, what's their position, and again, just making them feel, and again, because they're going to be asked some questions. And I love the do's and the don'ts of the interview. And in your textbook, please, please read over these do's and don'ts. I get a little, I chuckle at some of them, but these are real. There are people that don't even realize that they're asking somebody something that they should not be. Let's open up real quick, and I need to look at the time. Oh, I'm good. Okay, I have about 15, 16 more minutes, so I'm good with time. I was looking at my clock wrong. So let's look at those do's and don'ts. They are on page, let me get this right. Do's and don'ts. I'm a couple pages away. Your do's and your don'ts are on page. All right. Do's and don'ts. They start on page 386. 386. And if you read the do's, the don'ts are just the opposite, okay? But I sort of like to read the don'ts for some reason. Do not interrupt the applicant. Again, that is not very friendly. Here you've asked them a question and they're thinking and answering the question, and then you're going to interrupt them. And the interruption might be, oh, tell me more about that. Let them finish their statement. Because the interruption means that that person was actually talking and you interrupted, okay? That's what an interruption is. So let them finish what they have to say. Then you can ask them a follow-up question or a question to clarify what they just said. So yeah, don't interrupt. Again, you want to be respectful. That's another thing. When you interrupt like that, they say, wow, is everybody, their work here on that rude side? So again, yeah, you can send a bad message. Do not talk too much. Talkative interviews usually are failures. Let me open up. And talking too much can be from both sides, couldn't it? So what's the problem with being too talkative? What do you want to say there, Katori? Too talkative.
I think that can go along with interrupting the applicant, because I'm sure we've all been in a situation where we're talking to someone and they just keep talking and you can't get a word in. And it's a one-sided conversation.
Yes. Yeah, because when you're talking too much, somebody, the other person doesn't want to interrupt, but it's because you've been talking too long, okay? Yeah, and people now want to make a comment or they have something to say. So it does relate to number one. Yes, it really does. Did you want to add anything, Amanda, about being too talkative?
I think sometimes you can reveal too much. You can get into points that really aren't going to help you out in an interview.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes when someone is long-winded and saying too much, they're off topic. They're off topic, number one. I like the revealing too much. Yeah, now they're talking about stuff that they weren't even asked about, and they could be disclosing information that make you say, maybe we need to ask about that. That sounds like it might be what will we call a little smoke there where they smoke this fire. Yeah, they brought up something that would not have even been brought into that conversation. Yeah, and they're taking up time. I think that's what bothers me when people are too talkative. You hate to look at your watch, but you only have a certain amount of time. And now they're just taking way too much time. So time management, maybe they don't have good time management. Do not rush the interview. This is not only discourages, but it also results in failure of the interview. Yeah, rushing. Now, if somebody's too talkative, then yeah, it's probably now they took up so much time. Now you need to rush that process. And then therefore it's rude, that now that person isn't given enough time. You're not giving enough time to ask more questions, and you're not giving that person enough time to answer that question. Do not ask leading questions. I'll stop there. What's a leading question?
It's like asking a question where the answer is like obvious.
The answer is like embedded there. So you're a good worker, aren't you? Or you're always on time, or you have good time management skills. Yeah. You want to ask them a question, and based on their answer, you can determine if they have good time management or it needs improvement. Yeah, those leading questions has an embedded answer that you're looking for. Yeah, they already know what you're looking for. Let me cover one more don't. Do not ask questions that demand only a yes or no response. That's that close-ended. Have you ever worked in a food service department? They're going to either say what? Yes or no. Open-ended would be explain your experiences, your some of your duties and responsibilities in the food service department. Now, being open-ended, you can listen to their response, and now you're picking up on some of their communication skills. You can determine if they're able to describe things in detail, because sometimes they may say, well, I cooked at that facility. Now you need to follow up with what type of cooking preparation skills did you use? Okay, yeah. So again, you've got to be able to gather. See, you're getting information. You're not going to get a whole lot of information asking them close-ended questions, yes and no type questions. So I want you to go through all of your do's and your don'ts, because they're very, very good, and not only preparing you to be that manager or director that's designing these questions to be asked and knowing what you should be doing and not doing during an interview. But if you're going for a job interview, so I remind students that not only is it good as a manager, it's good because you're going to constantly be, going on job interviews, and this can definitely prepare you. Doing interviews, another part might be an actual test. And more, if you say that you have experience, you're a chef, and or let's say you're a dietary aide, and you said that you had experience as a dietary aide at a hospital, you can test their diet knowledge, couldn't you? Yeah, you could have them, you can set up, a special diet, like someone living with diabetes or someone on a low sodium diet. And now that test would be, what on this menu would you give them, and what do you see that you can substitute what was on a regular menu with something else? So you want to test their ability. It can be a handwritten test. It could be a demonstration of them actually showing you that skill. So there's a number of different types of tests. Now, this is when they're hired, and I want to back up because I do want to be specific on what should never be in an application and what should never be asked during an interview. Who remembers in your reading what you should never ask on an application or during an interview? What are some of the things that are definitely you should not be asking?
Marital status?
Definitely marital status. Whether they're single, married, divorced, whatever it may be, it has no bearing on their ability to do that job. What else you should never ask? Do you have one, Katori?
Children.
The number of children they have. You do not need to know their dependents, how many children they have. What else should you not ask? I'll help you out a little bit. Their nationality, their religion, okay? You should not be asking, their gender. Yeah, you should be and you should not be asking their age. Very important. Gender, age, marital status, their religion, their nationality. And it is written on page 387, and it is in the personnel records. I hope I'm pointing to the right area. Nope. It is on page 385 under selection, and the application form plays an important role in employment of any worker. And here it is, second paragraph, the Fair Employment Practice Law. So there's a law doing the hiring process, adopted by many states, make it illegal to ask questions that would be discriminatory. because of race. So you don't ask them their race. Religion, you do not ask. You don't ask them their sex, their age, marital status, or national origin. And I think the national origin could be maybe whether they're Republican, Democrat, Independent. I'm just saying no. You don't ask them their political party, or definitely no. Okay. Now, after employee has been hired, such information can be obtained for the individual's personnel record. So yeah, now you're gonna need their marital status for insurance purposes. You'll need their age. You'll need you know, certain information that's now required in their personnel record. That's why I had to backtrack, because now certain information is needed. And your personnel records is a record of appointments made after hiring, and this becomes the nucleus of activities and progress of the worker. Oh, and I didn't mean to do that. Orientation, introduction to the company, review of important policies and practices, review of benefits and services, benefit plan enrollment, completion of employment documents. This is when that previous information that should not have been asked during the application process, now you will need to know some of that information in order to complete a personnel file. When it comes to orientation, what works really well is that you have individuals from that organization that that's their job benefits. So if they are that person that will submit information to insurance companies, and they should be present during the orientation to explain those benefits and services. So if it's any department, yeah, definitely you want to bring human resources into orientation. I don't think anybody can explain those benefits as well as they could, okay? Continuing with orientation, review of employer expectations, job descriptions have to be thoroughly covered with them. The employee handbook, setting of employee expectations, definitely that a handbook has a lot of expectations. Introduction to fellow workers. Yeah, take them to a tour through the department and let them meet you know, the cooks, whoever's on duty that day. And then you could say, you know, so-and-so is off today, but you know, you'll get to meet that person tomorrow. Introduction to facilities, just showing them where you know, restrooms are, the break room. I mean, you know, you don't want anybody to come on their first day and just have no clue where things are. And again, that just puts people at ease. They know where to go. You gave them a good introduction of the job. You didn't just give them the job description, you take them to the location of where they will be working. Training, orientation and training are two different things. Orientation comes before training. Now you set up training. And there are different forms of training. There's formal training where you actually bring them into sort of like a classroom situation, and you show them films and maybe have PowerPoint presentations, and you have different speakers that will talk about that issue. Part of training would be hands-on. You take them to that location and you actually demonstrate, and then you sit back or you observe to see them if they're performing that skill. We use a lot of group training. Group training because it's quick. You can train a number of people doing one time. So a mixture of both are good. One-on-one or group training. You have to watch group training, because group training, you need to put like people in that group. You don't want to train a very experienced worker. For example, we're constantly training. You don't want to train a new person with the training of employees that have been there a year, 2 years, 3 years, because now you're not giving them information that would be on the same level. That's the on-job training that I was mentioning. Excellent in the food service industry. You can't just sit in a classroom and talk about how you're to use the slicer, okay? Or how you're to be using the dish machine. You take them and they actually demonstrate, and then they perform, show you whether they can actually complete that skill. Performance evaluation, we touched on this earlier. I think a performance evaluation should be ongoing and a daily thing where you're observing, you're monitoring, and you're correcting things as you see them. You don't wait 6 months to a year later to finally tell somebody, you're not cleaning the equipment properly. That's something that person should know immediately. Immediately. I would say in the food service department, every part of their performance should be immediate, because you're talking about food safety, we're talking about sanitation, and we correct these immediately, and many of their jobs and duties are related to safety and sanitation. So how in the world would you wait and weeks to months to bring something to someone's attention? And of course, you can't promote or transfer if you don't have records of performance. Can you imagine, not evaluating someone, but yet being able to promote them or transfer them? They need to know that they need to meet certain criteria in order to, again, be able to weigh employees against each other. There's employees that have been there for years, and they say, I've never been promoted. Well, you need and I'm out of time. So I think we did good. There we are with discipline, dismissal. Okay. Now, the labor policies legislation, I will not be testing on. I want you to read. When we come back next week, and let me go to my timeline and see where we are. Again, we went over case study 3. Good job, ladies. We didn't have any article presentations. Katori, I think yours would be the next one. Are you the 27th?
Yeah, I'm next.
Yes. So next week. Wow, this month is moving. Woo.
Yeah.
All right. Keep in mind, Katori's presenting next week her article. I'm looking forward to that. And I'm posting test 3, chapters 15 in discipline. Next week, I will just review some of the legislation and go into chapter 16. Okay, so I want to complete chapter 16 on the 27th. On May 4th, I want to complete accounting procedures. And then our last class, marketing. Boy, wow, we're down to the wire, folks. Okay, so any questions? I think we're good. Good class. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
You
Thank
too. Enjoy the weather. Bye-bye.